Welcome back to Blog Hub Point YouTube channel. In this video, you'll learn about the CSS shadow property. It's used to add a visual effect and make elements more beautiful. There are two types of shadows. The first is box shadow, which is used with HTML elements, and the second is text shadow. Let's understand these with the div and heading tags. We use box shadow for the div element and text shadow for the heading tags. Let's start with the box shadow. First, write the box shadow property inside the div selector. To make the shadow appear, you need to use at least two values based on your needs. If both values are set to 0 pixels, you won't see any shadow. The first value in the box shadow controls the horizontal shadow, moving it left or right. The second value controls the vertical shadow, which moves to the top or bottom. For example, to show the shadow on the right side, set the first value to 1px. And you'll see a subtle shadow on the right. If you increase it to 10px, you'll notice a more defined shadow on the right side of the box. To move the shadow to the left, add a negative sign with value, and you'll see the shadow on the left side. If you want the shadow to appear on both the left and bottom sides, set the second value to something like 10px, and the shadow will show on the bottom as well. If you want to show the shadow on the left and top, use a negative sign with the second value, and you'll see the shadow appear on the left and top sides in the browser. You'll also notice that the shadow color is black by default. However, you can change this color. To do so, simply add a color in the box shadow. For example, if you set the color to gold, the shadow will appear in a golden color on the top left side. You also can use the inset value in box shadow, which makes the shadow appear inside the box, but only on the right and bottom sides. Remove this inset value. Let's write another value which is used to blur the shadow. If you add a blur radius, like 10px, it will blur the top and left sides of the shadow. If you want the blur to affect all sides, set the horizontal and vertical values to 0. This way, the shadow will blur evenly around the box. If you increase value from 10 to 20px, then see it show the more blur all side. If you want to shrink or increase the shadow size, add another value. For example, adding 10px will make the shadow bigger. If you change it from 10px to 30px, the shadow will grow even larger. You can also use multiple colors in the shadow. First, copy all the box shadow values. Then, write a comma and paste it after the box shadow. For the first pair, set the horizontal and vertical values to -10px. For the second pair, set the color to green-yellow, then adjust the vertical value to 5px and the horizontal value to 10px. Save it, and when you view it in the browser, you'll see yellow on the top and left, while green-yellow appears on the right and bottom. Now, let's work with text shadow. Place the text shadow inside the H1 tag, and then check it in the browser. The text shadow requires at least two values for the horizontal and vertical directions, just like box shadow. If both values are set to 0, there will be no effect. For example, to create a shadow on the left side, set the first value to -10px and check it in the browser. You'll see the shadow on the left. If you set the second value to 20px, the shadow will appear at the bottom. You also change the color of text gray like box shadow. For example, set color value gray, it show the text shadow in gray color. If the first value is set to 0, the text shadow will look like word art in MS Word. You can also blur the text shadow, just like with box shadow. To do this, add a third numeric value, like 10px. After saving and refreshing, you'll see the text with a blurred effect. If you set it to 2px, it will show a nice, subtle blur effect. You can also use multiple colors in the text shadow, just like with box shadow. First, copy all the values, then add a comma and paste it after the original shadow. For the second pair, set the vertical value to negative and change the color to blue. When you check it in the browser, you'll see the shadow on top in blue and the bottom in gray. This is a simple example of how to use box and text shadow with multiple colors. Thanks for watching. If this video was helpful, don't forget to subscribe, comment, like, and share.